Welcome to The Big Rich Show. This podcast will focus on conversations with friends and acquaintances within the four-wheel drive industry. Many of the people that I will be interviewing, you may know the name, you may know some of the history, but let's get in depth with these people and find out what truly makes them a four-wheel drive enthusiast. So now's the time to sit back, grab a cold one, and enjoy our conversation.
Whether you're crawling the Red Rocks of Moab or hauling your toys to the trail, Maxxis has the tires you can trust for performance and durability. 4 wheels or 2, Maxxis tires are the choice of champions because they know that whether for work or play, for fun or competition, Maxxis tires deliver. Choose Maxxis. Tread victoriously.
Why should you read 4Low magazine? Because 4Low magazine is about your lifestyle, the four-wheel drive adventure lifestyle that we all enjoy. Rock crawling, trail riding, event coverage, vehicle builds, and do-it-yourself tech, all in a beautifully presented package. You won't find 4Low on the newsstand rack, so subscribe today and have it delivered to you. On today's episode of Conversations with Big Rich, we have Jim Horne. Some of you may know Jim, some of you may not. Some of you may wonder, why am I interviewing Jim? Well, Jim and I go back around the beginning of Dirt Riot, I believe. Jim was a spotter for Steve Nantz first at our rock crawls, and then we jumped into racing the Dirt Riot series with us. And then Jim left the area and started other endeavors, and we're going to get into all that with Jim right now. So, Jim, thank you for coming on board with us.
Trust me, it's my pleasure, Rich. Anytime I get a phone call or a text from you, I'm always excited, man.
I think that's kind of overrating it, but that's good. Anyway, let's jump right in and let's start talking about, like we do with everybody, you know, where you grew up and what your interests were as a young kid, and eventually how you got into this industry, and you know, your love of the industry itself. So where'd you grow up?
Sure. Yeah, I was born in Yakima, Washington. We lived in the area for Yakima. My grandpa owned an apple orchard. So basically, I think almost anybody in this sport, they're outdoor individuals for sure. And that's the way I grew up. But yeah, I was born in Yakima, Washington, dude, all the way back in 1971. Woo!
Wow.
I'm getting old, brother.
Yeah, you're still not as old as me.
I know. But yeah, I grew up in the Washington State area. And when I was a kid, you know, I grew up around Jeeps. My dad, you know, back in the 70s, racing his CJ5. We were a member of the Timberwolves Jeep Club back in the day. So for my whole life, ever since I was born, I've been around everything you possibly could Jeep-wise. You know, I remember back, you know, 5 and 6 years old, like every kid does. Well, maybe not every kid, but, you know, handing my dad a wrench or, you know, helping him pull a motor, just things like that. And it kind of, you know, once it gets a hold of you can't shake it. And heck, I really haven't wanted to shake it.
You know, I would never have guessed you were from Yakima.
Really?
We do an event in Goldendale, Washington every year. And
yeah, I've competed in that with Steve. That was one dusty event.
It's all that volcanic dust from the rock out there.
Yeah, it definitely is. It was a good event, though. There's some good stuff out there. I really enjoyed that, but it was really dusty. I remember that.
Yeah, everybody likes the event. It's except for the dust. But
yeah,
you know, you can't have everything.
You know, it's funny. Speaking of that event, I remember I got into an argument with you over some rules about Steve and I crossing the cones, and somebody, you know, they were trying to time us out. They're like, "You timed out," and I was like, "No," and you had to come over. It wasn't heated between us. It was competitive. That's what it was when we were out there.
Absolutely. I never think that it's personal, and that's one reason I think I make a good promoter, because I don't take it personal.
No, and that's one thing you can't. You know, when you hang around with a bunch of competitors and just like yourself, it is what it is when you're out there. You know, everybody shakes hands and drinks a beer after it's all over. And that's one thing, too, I've really loved about this sport is from the competition side to the racing side, or just even being out there on the trails, the camaraderie, everybody's out there to help everybody out. And I've really enjoyed that. And I think that's what keeps me drawn into the sport. And just, people still help me, and I love helping other people. It's been fantastic. But anyway, back to my childhood. Yeah, growing up in Washington, I lived there for about 14 years. Like I said, my dad always raced Jeeps, and all my uncles did. So I've constantly been around it. After that, we moved to a place called North Powder, Oregon. It's just a small town. And then, just memories.
Where is that? I've never heard of that.
It's just, let's see, it's south of La Grande and just north of Baker, are two of the bigger cities.
Oh, really? I've been all through every single road there, and I don't remember. Huh? Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So, and then I remember replacing the spider gears in my dad's Jeep. We had a CJ7 then. I think it was a 1984 CJ7, and laying in the driveway replacing spider gears when he blew those out when we were up in the mountains messing around.
Doing the logging roads and everything in that area?
Yep. You know how that is, especially get up in the Northwest. There's some beautiful country up there.
Absolutely. Especially around those volcanoes.
Yeah, definitely.
The landscape can change from, depending on where the lava flows have gone in the prehistoric times, or, to me, anything over 200 years is prehistoric. But, any of those changes like that to the area really are dramatic in the volcanic areas.
Yeah, for sure. And then let's see. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say. So in school, were you interested in any of the sports that the schools may have offered, or were you one of those?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I played a lot of football.
Okay.
Obviously in high school, back in the glory days, high school, and ran track. I was had some decent speed for who I was. It's funny because after we left Oregon, I only lived in Oregon for a couple of years, about a year and a half, and then we moved all the way to Missouri.
Oh, wow.
My grandparents moved to Missouri, and then my dad actually was born in Auburn, California, but then he lived quite a bit of time in Arkansas, and he saw an opportunity to go back there and kind of let us or raise us there. I moved back there when I was 14, and being from Northwest and then moving to Missouri,
culture
I've
shock.
never felt 100%, dude. I've never felt humidity before, and we moved there in July. And that's something that I don't care who you are, you don't get used to it. You just don't. But yeah, anyway, we moved there, and one great thing that came out of that's where I met my wife, Barb. So, I don't ever regret when I first moved there. I was like, what the hell are you doing? And then, after all that played out, it was great. But yeah, I was a pretty decent athlete for a shorter dude. I was always pretty quick, and I love playing football. I don't know if I had maybe anger issues, but I love to take it out on other people.
Perfect.
And then ran quite a bit of track also. But yeah, for me, I wasn't very studious. I was just, you go to school and hang out just because it's a cool thing to do. And then as soon as it was over, I was out of there. I barely made it through, but I did make it through in 4 years of high school. So
that works.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, you got to, if you get that high school diploma, at least you don't have to go back and get a GED.
That's it.
Right.
Two things I'm proud of: my high school diploma, and there's a lot of things I'm proud of, but my high school diploma and an honorable discharge out of the Air Force. So that's not too shabby.
So you said you met Barb in Arkansas, and what town in Arkansas were you in?
It was Missouri.
Oh, Missouri.
And it was no, that's fine, no problem at all, Rich. But it was Lake Ozark, Missouri.
Oh, wow.
That's where I met her.
Okay.
Yeah, we've been married for 30 years now. I'll tell you what, I put that girl through the ringer. She's she's pretty tough, and she's kept me straight for a lot of years.
Yeah, I would imagine she has.
Yeah.
She's a great lady, that's for sure. And I'm glad that she's back being healthy.
Yeah, me too. And I appreciate you saying that, Rich. A couple of years ago, she got diagnosed with breast cancer, and I always knew she was strong, and because she's always had to be strong to live with me for so many years. But I was with Jeep Jamboree when that was going on, and the year she got diagnosed was 2019, and I literally traveled 303 days that year. And that's one thing too, like everybody, in this sport, in this industry, you choose to live a lifestyle, and by no means are Barb and I rich. We had health insurance and everything like that, but health insurance only covers so much. And when you say the word cancer, everything seems like it triples, and that's unfortunate. But she basically, I would come home here and there just to, make sure she was okay. But I had to continue to work to make sure we were paying the bills, and she understood it. And I've never met a champion at life like Barb is. I know everybody's like, oh, but no, I mean, that's one of the strongest people, not just men or women, but one of the strongest people I've ever met in my entire life. So she always keeps me straight and keeps pushing. You're married to Shell, so
Yes.
you know how it is.
Yep, absolutely. It's great that I was able to find somebody that not only would put up with my passion, but help me succeed in it. I that wasn't always the case in my life, and
Yeah.
The having Shelly's help has really made a big difference, and
Yeah,
so I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Barb and I know you and Shelly really well, and just to be able to hang out with you guys, especially competition wise. But that's the way you and I met. But then you become friends over the years, and you start to realize how special people are that you're close to. And like you and I, we see each other. I probably haven't seen you in a few years, but I feel like I talked to you yesterday.
Exactly.
Or saw you and Shelly just a couple of days ago. I think that's one of the bonds that this industry creates and this sport. There's a lot of things out there, but nothing quite like the off-road industry and what it brings into your life. As far as I'm concerned, for me and my family, our kids grew up in it. We lived in Moab with our Jeep tour business there. Barb and I started that from scratch, and the way that happened, we owned an excavating company there in Salt Lake for a number of years, and then we had the crash of 07 and 08. And we watched our business really start to tail off. And geez, I was 37 years old. And, we had a Jeep and we wheeled in Moab, starting about 97 or 98, I think. And then you start to kind of see that go south. And this is one of the points that I was making with Barb being so strong. It was funny at 37. I was like, we had an excavating company. I was like, for a guy that barely got through high school, we're doing all right. We had a decent home on a little bit of land outside of Salt Lake, and I had a little back deck, and you looked over, we had 6 acres, and I was like, doing pretty good. And then to watch that start falling apart, and then you're doing everything you can to save it, and that's I really got into this industry a little bit deeper. It saved us, to say something weird maybe. But we watched that downturn, and we started trying to get out of our construction side. And I talked to Barb, and I was like, hey, I'd like to start a Jeep tour business in Moab, and money's just super tight. And she's like, all right, what do we need to do? And I was like, hey, let's go buy 2 4-doors. And this was in 07. And she's like, this is a great idea. So we bought 2 4-doors, and then there's a you probably know Ben Hanks.
Yep.
I was hanging out with Ben Hanks in Salt Lake, and I was like, hey, dude, we need to build a bracket for a 3rd row seat in this JK. And he's like, we could do that. So I went to his shop there, and we just built some bracket. I put a 3rd row. It was a TJ seat bracket, or mounted it to the floor and threw some seat belts in there. And I started doing tours on the weekends. And like I said, money was tight. I wouldn't even get a hotel room. I'd camp. I'd wash up on the river, just stupid things, You're just, and it was so funny because we had that home, on 6 acres, and then, you're trying to save everything you possibly can that you've ever worked for. And everything just kind of worked out. And, I always consider myself very lucky with where I am and what I get to do. But I also believe you make your own luck. And if you work your ass off and you never give up, good things happen to you, and a lot of bad things happen to you also. Right. But Barb and I have always put our head down and just pushed through it, and we tried to build our Jeep tour business and rentals in Moab as fast as we possibly could. We literally moved to Moab. The kids Jake and Ken's. I think Jake was probably 12 or 13. I think Kenzie was 10 or 11. Let's see, no, she was 9 or 10, fifth grade and eighth grade.
Okay.
So, you always try to make that transition to where they don't realize what's going on. And Barb and I did a pretty decent job at it because they had no idea what was going down. And but we moved to Moab in our fifth wheel, and we just started pounding it out. And within a year, we were finally renting a house again, and then bought a house, and then we were just buying more and more Jeeps, and it went fast as I look back on it. But when you're going through life changes like that with the economy, it seemed like it took forever. So
well, and it's really taxing mentally and physically at the same time. And then, but the thing to remember is, for anybody listening to this, the tough times, the hard times are what build character. The easy times are what, that's not character building.
No, and I agree 100%. And just like I said, maybe when you're going through it, you don't realize it, but after you went through it, you're like, well, that really sucked, but the road ahead gets a little easier for sure.
Right. And you learn along the way, where to position yourself. I remember the first time that we went into, I think it was called Desert Storm, but when we, went into Iraq,
yeah,
I had a really successful landscape company that just instantly disappeared in Northern California. And I was like devastated. I didn't know what I was going to do. I owed so much to, for all the equipment that I leased, and turning it in did not get rid of that because they said, oh, you still owe for what your lease agreement was, things like that. And I learned, never to lease again. I either buy it outright cash or I don't get it, those kind of things. So you just take those kind of things with you for the rest of your life, and hopefully don't make the same mistakes twice.
No, and that's totally true. That's kind of, on the excavating side, you're still, even if you aren't leasing, if you're buying your equipment, you're making payments, those payments still come.
Yes.
And when you aren't getting paid, it's hard to make that stuff up. But it's stressful for sure. You and I have we've walked the same path here and there, haven't we?
Yes. And I think even if we've never sat and really talked about it, it's those kind of personal experiences that, like I said, builds character. And you see that in other people. You see those same strengths or qualities, and so you're attracted to those. And I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
Not that I think you're a handsome guy like that, but yeah, I mean you are, obviously, because you got Barb. But you're. I didn't mean it that way. Attracted wise. I want to clear that up for the audience.
Hey, and there's nothing wrong with that, Rich. But it's so funny. Everybody says that I'm always the that's Barb. Oh, here comes Jim. Yeah, boy, he's really lucky. I'm really lucky, but I love that. That makes my day every time somebody says that to me.
Yeah, every time I see Rick Payway, he'll just walk right by me like I'm not even standing there, and give Shelly a hug and talk to Shelly. And I'm like,
I get it,
Rick.
Yeah, you just kick dirt on Payway's toes. He's always wearing those damn sandals.
It's so true. So let's go back to those days where back in Missouri, you met Barb. Was it like a high school thing or what?
Yeah, I started dating her my senior year, and she was a junior. So after I graduated high school, I went to work for my dad. He was into the excavating side, and not too many people's met my dad, but talk about a hard ass. Whew. Yeah, he taught me a lot, but every once in a while we would shut the job down because he was yelling at me, and I was 18 then, and I was yelling back. But after those big old fights, we'd always eat lunch together, and everybody was like, "How the hell do you guys do that?" I'm like, "I don't know, maybe we're just stupid." But he taught me a lot. He taught me, he's passed away probably, let's see, probably 7 or 8 years ago. But when you don't realize what your parents do for you or what they've done for you, but my dad, he was a hard ass, and he was always on me about just just do better, do better, do better, and always expect the best out of yourself. But back in the day, it wasn't positive reinforcement; it was always negative reinforcement. He would always say to me, "Well, if that's the best you can do, Jimbo," and I was just like, "Damn, boy, yeah." It was. He was one of those guys you can never make happy, but
kind of like Red Foreman.
Yeah, right.
Hey, dumbass.
Yeah.
I think that's what I got a lot of.
That's so funny. And then just like another thing too, every kid that's helped his dad work on something, and you have to hold that flashlight. Oh,
you never.
Well, you hear those
right.
words, yeah. So anyway, side story, obviously on that. But yeah, and then Barb and I started dating her my senior year, and then her junior year, and then graduated, and then I started working for my dad. And then when I was 19, I went into the military. I went into the Air Force. I was a hydraulic specialist on C5s. And then we ended up moving to Northern California. We were stationed at Travis Air Force Base back in the early 90s. So I spent a lot of time in the Middle East, Dhahran, Saudi Arabia, Cairo, Egypt, Mombasa, Kenya, and places like that. So by the time I was probably 20, 21, I'd not been quite all the way around the world yet, but I've seen a lot of third world countries and a lot of things that, we're very lucky with where we live, for sure.
Yeah, I wish more people realize that.
Yeah, and I won't turn this into anything political, because everybody knows how kind of we all feel, because we're all in the same sport, so we share a lot of the values. But
yes,
no matter what it is, no matter what it is here, it's it could be better, but boy, it could be a lot worse, and that's for sure.
Correct.
Yeah.
So then, you said the military. How long did you spend in the Air Force?
I did 4 years in the Air Force.
And
I go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say you were stationed in Sacramento area. Travis.
Travis Air Force Base.
Okay.
Yeah, Barb and I were stationed there for 4 years.
Nice.
So we actually really enjoyed Northern California, and by then, I was still into wheeling, and I wasn't a Jeep, but I had a 1976 Ram Charger, and we'd take up on the Rubicon, and it was a lot of fun, because you're young and dumb and you don't know any better about anything. I was 19, 20 years old, but we would just go up there and camp on the weekends and have a good time. Heck, it was only 2 hours from the house, so we got to spend a lot of time up there, and it was really cool. Those are, it's funny. The older you get, the more you look back and think about things in your life, and you're like, oh, that was pretty cool. You never realize what you're doing while you're doing it. It just seems like it kind of, this sucks. But once you've done it and you look back, it's like, that was pretty neat.
Yes.
So we really enjoyed living in Northern California. And then it was funny because, this is like 20, 30 years down the road, but, being involved with Jeep Jamboree USA, they're headquartered right there in Georgetown. So, I spent a lot of time in Northern California. Barb would fly back with me, and we would go back to Travis Air Force Base and kind of reminisce about stuff. And it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, Travis has changed now. Well, all that area has, but that's
tremendously.
I basically call Placerville my hometown, even though I went to high school in the Bay Area, in San Bruno, California. The Northern California, is my area, but Placerville is where I considered home.
Yeah. Talking to Rich, your son, he was saying the same thing. I get to spend a little bit of time with him here and there doing some of these launches for Jeep, when I was with Jeep Jamboree, and just getting a lot of history from him. But he was like, I was, Placerville, Rubicon and everything. So it's kind of cool to share stories about that.
Yeah, we were raised them there. The kids were born and raised in Placerville. And then when I lost the landscape company, like I said, I went to the Bay Area, and then they grew up in basically Pacifica, Napa area, and then we moved to Cedar City, Utah. And then that's where Rich did 3.5 years or 2.5 years of high school there, and we moved back after Christmas of his junior year. We got through the junior football season. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
like the way the coaches were using him, and so we moved back to Northern California, and then the coaches sounded like they were going to be a great deal at El Dorado High School there, and then they ended up being
Yeah.
dumbasses. But that happens.
It does. It does. So I didn't, you know what? We've known each other for a while, but I had no idea you guys hopped around like that from there to Cedar City.
Yep. Cedar City was great, though. I mean, I was a club president, and that's how I got into the rock crawling. With the Color Country 4-wheel drive, we helped Ranch Pratt get into Cedar City to out at Three Peaks and get his permit out there and run the event and helped with all that. And then that's when I made the decision that when I moved back to California that I was going to start Cal Rocks. And so,
really?
Yeah, that all happened in, that move happened in 2000, and then we started Cal Rocks in 2001. Yep.
Man, that's awesome. I had no idea, Rich. No idea. That's really cool. And I love Three Peaks.
It is. It's a great arena. It really is.
Oh, Steve and I, we competed there a few years together, and that's some hardcore stuff. I mean, everything's just a little off camber, just enough to where you're like, you're trying to dodge those cones, and you're like, yeah, just walking those courses together, and you always have a game plan until you get punched in the mouth and you're tired. You're right up against the cone. You're just like, shit, didn't see that coming.
So true. So true.
Yeah, dude, it's because you're sadistic when you set those courses up. You and Josh, I hated you guys sometimes. I was like, are you kidding me? Oh, and then you get the map, and now I'm walking through the bonus line, and Steve and I are looking at each other and like, Jesus Christ, come on.
Yeah, what's he on?
Yeah, but talk about a lot of fun.
Yeah, it has been, and it's going to continue to be. So in Northern California, you got through the Air Force.
Yeah.
Did you stay in Northern California? Or where'd you go after that?
No, I was getting ready to get out of the Air Force, and everybody was like, "What are you going to do?" And I was like, "I don't know." I was an aircraft mechanic, but when I was getting ready to get out, that's when Clinton came into office. So he started RIF in the military, which is called reduction in forces. So even if you had an A&P, an airframe and power plant license and everything like that, by the time it was my turn, he was that they were paying individuals to get out of the military, and not re-up, because they were just reducing the force size, obviously.
Right.
So, my plan was to become an aircraft mechanic, because that's what I'd done for the last 4 years. And, you start putting that in applications, and they're like, oh, no matter what airline you put them in for, you were so far at the bottom of the list, you weren't going to get hired, no matter what your qualifications were, because it was so flooded with ex-military that were already out a year and a half to 2 years ahead of where I was.
Right.
So, Barb and I vacationed when we were kids in Colorado. And I said, you know what? I want to move to Colorado. And I told all of our friends that I was like, hey, we're moving to Colorado. And they're like, do you have a job? And I was like, nope. And then it's so funny, too, because Barb was 7 months pregnant with Jake when I got out of the military. And she was like, let's just go. And anyway, all my friends were like, you guys are crazy. I was like, maybe I'll figure it out when we get there. And, we had maybe $3,000 to our name. We loaded up in 1995 and moved to Florissant, Colorado.
Wow.
And I had a little bit of pay coming from the military still. And lucked into a construction job and started making some decent money. And then we traded. Barb had a 1993 Probe. And let's see, what was I driving then? Let's see, I had my Ram Charger. And then we got to Colorado. We got rear-ended in that Ram Charger. They fixed it up and everything. Barb was 7 months pregnant. They rear-ended us in the snow. And then we ended up selling that Ram Charger, and we bought a 1995 YJ. And that's the YJ I sported in Moab for so many years.
Okay.
That Steve and I built, and what a tremendous job that turned out to be. It was that if I could get a few things back, that YJ would be one of them. I think it's somewhere in Oklahoma right now. But anyway, we moved to Colorado, lucked out, got a decent job. It was called Cripple Creek Gold Mine, and I was an operator. You'd pump out 60 hours a week, so we were making decent money. You get time and a half for anything over 20. And then we lived there for about a year, maybe about a year. And then Jake was born. And then we ended up moving down to Prescott Valley, Arizona. Barb's parents lived in Cottonwood, and they were like, "Hey, come down. It's really nice." And so we visited a couple times. And then the company I was with, Industrial Constructors, they actually had another gold mine that they were doing and you guys know it because it was down in Baghdad.
Okay.
Baghdad, Arizona. So we moved down there and hung out for a little bit, for a year or two. And then I worked for them for a while when we were living in Prescott Valley, and then they ended up going to Salt Lake. And that's how Barb and I actually ended up in Utah. And that was in 96 or 97. Maybe it was 97, June of 97, I think.
So,
and then go ahead. I'm sorry.
Who owned the gold mine in Baghdad at that time? Right now it's Freeman McMoran or Memoran, something like that. And it's they're mainly copper.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You know what? It was a copper mine.
Okay,
that's
copper.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, I worked for a decent amount of gold mines. When I got transferred when we moved up to Salt Lake, I worked at Kennecott, and that was all copper also.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can't remember what was the Baghdad mine called. God, that was 20 some odd years ago.
God,
that's
back
crazy.
Then I have no idea. I know that,
I don't either.
That Freeport McMoran is what owns it now, and it's just, as far as I know, it's just called the Baghdad. But,
yeah, I guess it was the Baghdad mine when I was there also.
Yeah, as opposed to the big one they have down south in Arizona. I can't even remember. Marisi. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, is that all open pit copper down there too?
Yes. In fact, Marisi is one of the largest open pit mines. I think it's the largest one in Arizona.
Yeah, I'll be. Huh.
But that's a sidebar.
Yep, I've got a lot of sidebars, I guess. In the story of my life. But yeah, we still had that 95 YJ, and then once we got up to Salt Lake, we were doing okay. And then the first thing back in the 90s, I was like, oh, I'm buying a set of Comfort shackles, and I put a set of 2-inch Comfort shackles on that YJ. And then it's so funny because I've known Dennis Wood with Terraflex, back when he was they had Methco.
Right.
And he's a pretty good staple in my life because Dennis and I, we go way back. 96 or 97 was the first time I met him. And then, I was buying parts from him. And then, I had that YJ, and then I was like, oh, let's do a spring over. And then you draw it out or you tape it out on the back of your YJ. And you're like, oh, I'm comp cutting it. And you're not even set up to be comp cut yet. And I comp cut the Jeep. And I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? I'm 6 inches too short. I need to push the axle out. So just stupid stuff like that. I look at pictures, that Barb's taken, or, back in the day, you had a photo album, and I'm looking through that. I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? So it's amazing how your life evolves and the sports evolve. But now it seems like it goes so fast. But yeah, YJ with the spring over. That was 35s and 37s, man. That was the shit back then.
That was big stuff.
Oh, dude, you are kidding.
So then you got into construction on your own. You left the gold mine?
Yeah.
Or the copper mine?
Yeah. Yeah, I started working for another company after I left Kennecott because they were getting ready to move up to Wyoming. And you know what? Let's see. I'm trying to remember because we lived in Beatty, Nevada. Let's see, when the hell did we live in Beatty, Nevada? That's how we kind of got a taste for Nevada. But I was still with the same company. Let's see, I left Arizona. Barb and I left Prescott Valley, Arizona. And if anybody knows Beatty, Nevada, they'd be like, why would you move to Beatty, Nevada?
Yeah, I had
right?
I had relatives there in my first marriage.
That's so funny because, if you blink and miss a left turn in Beatty, you've missed Beatty, Nevada. So,
and if you go a mile over the speed limit, you get a ticket.
Oh, man, that's one thing, too, about Nevada because, we still live in Nevada. The small town speed limit at 25 to 35, it's way too slow.
Yeah, and they mean it.
No, they do mean it. They definitely mean it. So we lived in Beatty. We went from Arizona to Beatty, Nevada for about 6 months, and we worked at, I think it was Bullfrog Gold Mine with the same company. I was running dozer, scraper, and everything. And you work that many hours, and back in the day it was really good money, and it was easy money. I've always been decent at running equipment. So then after we moved to Beatty, then we went to Salt Lake, and then we finished up with Kennecott, and they were getting ready to move to Wyoming. And Barb was pregnant with Ken's, and she said, I don't want to move anymore. And I said, I agree. We're in our 20s. We probably need to settle down just a little bit. And so I got a job as an operator with a company called Hall Excavating. And I always had a pretty decent knack for being able to move dirt fast because I was with Industrial, and they were a high baller dirt moving company. And I started, it was a smaller company, and I ended up being able to move dirt pretty quick for them, and became a superintendent when I was like 26 or 27. I'll tell you what, I thought I was high rolling. I think my salary was, I don't know, 60,000 a year, and then I had my own company truck, and I was like, whoa. And then I was 28 or 29, and we already had Jake and Ken's. Ken's was born and everything, and then Barb and I bought our first house, and it was out in Eagle Mountain, Utah. And then, just being around everybody. And like I said, I met Dennis, and we were hanging out. And then, I met a kid named Ben Hanks. And at the time, and still, he was cutting edge with everything he was doing, and got to know him really well. And we did some things together. And then, it was kind of the birth of where Barb and I started on the off-road side. You start wheeling in Moab. Once you go to Moab, you're just hooked.
Right.
That's one of the there's two places I believe in. If you're a wheeler, even if you're on the East Coast, and with Jamboree, I've been really lucky, and I've got to spend a lot of time in the East Coast, and I never realized how spoiled in the West we were because of all the open land we have, and just the wheeling's phenomenal. And you get back to the East Coast, and they've got some really cool stuff out here, which I'm in Alabama right now. At Rusty's Off-Road Products, just helping him out. And I had a nice soft place to land when I left Jamboree, and I've known Rusty for quite a few years, and it's been really cool. But anyway, another side note. But with what we have out in the West in the wheeling, and then you get out here, and they scrap and save for every trail they have out here. Most of it's on private land. But yeah, you get to the Mecca. Like I say, and long story longer, two trails are two places you need to go. You need to go to the Rubicon. Is it going to be the hardest trail you've ever done? No. But it's just awesome because of the history of wheeling and the sport. And it's one thing I love about the Rubicon is it's constant. Once you're on it, you're on it.
Yep.
There's no way off of it except for to get off of it. And it doesn't matter if you're dead toed out of there or whatever, but it's some of the most beautiful scenery and just phenomenal wheeling that I've ever been lucky enough to do. And then same thing with Moab. You can't say enough about Moab. And I wasn't wheeling Moab back in the 60s, 70s, or 80s. I was there in the late 90s. But Moab's it really changed, I think. You got the introduction of the side by sides, and I'm not knocking the side by sides, so I don't need any hate, everybody. But I think that changed.
It has.
I think that yes. I think it changed the feel of Moab, and you've got a lot more money coming into Moab now, and it feels different. Even when Barb and I go back, and our daughter Kenzie and her husband Trevor, they still live there. And I love to go back and visit, and it was phenomenal. Barb and I lived there for almost 10 years with our business, and we had a really good time. It was a great place to raise our kids there. And, Ken's is still a big part of the community. And like I said, Barb and I love to go back. And that's how we ended up starting, to get back to where I was earlier, I guess, Rich, with, Outlaw Jeep Tours. When we started this whole off-road industry thing that we had going, it was great. And when we started that, we didn't have a lot of money by any means. And, I sat on the corner, and I felt like such a hooker sitting on the corner. I literally had 2 4-doors in my YJ. And my YJ was huge. It was sprung over. No lift springs, but it was running 40s. It was just giant. But I sat there on the corner in a lawn chair, and I took my first tour out. And we did Hell's Revenge. That's the bread and butter for any tour company is Hell's Revenge. And I called Barb, and I was like, hey, I just booked my first tour, and we still had some employees up there. with our excavating company, and everything was holding its own. You know, we were losing our ass, obviously, but it was holding its own. And so I took my first tour out, and then, you know, the big plan is to go to the Overlook, and then you turn around and come back off the Overlook. So, you know, I was like, you know, I got a couple hours worth of bullshit, I guess, so I can get through these guys and run it in and out. So Barb's like, babe, you've never came off a Hell's Revenge backwards before. I'm like, it'll be fine. I've done Hell's Revenge I don't know how many times. So this is a true story, Rich. I get to the Overlook. It was an older couple. They just had great personalities. They made the whole trip really good for me because, you know, you're just trying to make everybody have a good time. You're trying to educate them, and so they're having a good time. So we get to the Overlook, and they're like, "Oh my God, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." I'm like, "Right." So we start coming off, and I get through the sand, and, you know, you start heading back, and I'm just like, "Holy shit, where am I?" And all I heard, Rich, and this is a totally true story. I heard Barb's voice in my head going, "I told you so. I told you so." Because she was always like, "You need to go run it off backwards." And I was like, "I'll be fine." Anyway, you know, you just stick kind of to the trail, and you're just like, "Oh, thank God, I know where I'm at." And it turned out to be, I feel terrible because it's been quite a few years now, but I can't remember the names. But they were just the best people, and they made my trip. And that's kind of how this whole Jeep tour thing started, was with those two older individuals that just made my day.
That's
And then
awesome.
we started making a little money with it. And then you know, you end up having two Jeeps, and you have three Jeeps. And then, you know, I don't know if any, you know, if you've been to Moab back then, Richard Farabee with Farabee Jeep Rentals, I went and put a bug in his ear, and I said, "Hey, you know, if you ever want me to take a couple of Jeeps off your hands and help you start renting these out, you know, love to." And then, you know, he was like, you know, a couple months later, we had our shop. Barb and I had our shop downtown Moab, just right behind the first car wash there, off of 300th Street.
Right.
And he was like, "You know, I actually no, it was a little bit before that. It was after that. I'm sorry." You know, so much. The older you get, you start realizing how lucky you've been, and everything you've got to do, and then it just, you kind of forget about things here and there. So we ended up doing that with Farabee. So we had a couple of rental Jeeps, and then we kind of teamed up with Richard. And you know, at one point in time, we probably had a little over 30 rental Jeeps, you know, between Farabee and I on our lot. And, you know, Barb and I were still up and coming, so we didn't have well, actually, I don't think we had any employees at the time. So I would go do Jeep tours, and then Barb would be in the office renting out about probably 15 Jeeps to 20 Jeeps all by herself in the morning. Talk about one to kill you. Oh yeah, yeah. I'm still surprised I'm alive. So, but anyway, yeah.
Character building.
You're right. Character building. Barb has a lot of character.
Well, she has you, so she has an extra amount of character.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and then after that, it just kind of, you know, and that's one thing too. I can't say enough about Steve Nantz. You know, he's been a key person in my life. And, you know, I started doing my thing, he started doing his, and, you know, he's in Hurricane, and he's just crushing it with Sand Hollow right now. But he was definitely my brother from another mother, for sure. We spent day in and day out. He was helping me, and we were building things together, and then that's how I ended up meeting you. So I, just so you know, I kind of blame you for this little addiction I have with competing and racing and everything now, because the first time I ever competed was with Steve in his little moon buggy. I was hooked. I was like, "Yep, I can't shake this."
That's good. That's my job.
And you do a really good job at it. So, and that's one thing too, you start to realize, you know, and then you kind of get into the Ultra 4 side, and then, you know, we did Dirt Riot together. And then, you know, you start to feel like it's something that, you know, I don't need to do or want to do. You have to do it. And that's the drive and the passion I think this industry has with a lot of people. And it doesn't matter, I don't think, what end of the spectrum you're on, from, wow, I just bought my first Jeep, to, hey, I've been racing for years. It's the drive that you have to do it. And one thing too, when Barb and I, when we were in Moab, and, you know, we got to guide everybody under the sun, from a $500 rig to a a $200,000 rig. And I never cared what people brought in for us to guide or to go have a good time with, as long as they enjoyed what they were doing and I could teach them some things when we were guiding them. That was the most important thing ever to me. And like I said, I really didn't care what you had. If you're wheeling it and you're having a good time, that's all this sport means to me. And, I might upset a lot of people out there right now, but I didn't care if it was a Toyota or if it was a Jeep or whatever you had. Just get out there and enjoy what there is to wheel.
Exactly. I've never been brand specific.
I'm brand specific, but I won't say anything. I don't want to get it. No hate. No drama's good for me.
I get it. So let's talk about, after Moab, you moved back to Nevada for a little while?
Yeah, we actually, so when we left Moab, we lived there for probably almost 10 years, I think. And, Jake and Ken's graduated high school. And, a lot of people, they're, oh, you can never wheel too much. I was literally guiding 250 days a year. Steve and I were competing, and then I was racing Ultra 4 in the Unlimited Series with John Pickin. And I started to get burned out. And, I wasn't making it enjoyable for the individuals that were walking through our door anymore. And so Barb and I actually ended up selling our Jeep tour and rental business, and then our house, and we moved to Mesquite, Nevada. Well, we didn't actually move. We bought a motor home, and we had a trailer, and we towed a Jeep around for a while. And I was 45 when that happened. And everybody's like, oh my God, you're so lucky, you're living the dream. And Barb and I were scared shitless because we had no idea what we were going to do. It's not like we had $4 million sitting in the bank and I wasn't worried. It was like, well, we got enough to survive for about 6 months. So let's see what we can figure out. And then, so we moved to Mesquite, and then I started talking to Steve, just a super great friend. And I was like, I think there's a need for a fab shop down here. And he's like, you think so? And I said, yeah. I said, I think Sand Hollow is going to be up and coming. And, Little Rich was down there and he was doing his thing, and he's just been crushing it. And he's like, well, let's look into it. And I was like, yeah, that sounds good. So he came down and we all started talking and everything. And that's kind of where we came up with the idea with Sand Hollow Off-Road. And Steve was still, we still owned Moab 4x4 Outpost. And so Barb and I were down there a lot, and we kind of got it up and running. And I was excited for sure. And then, kind of got to where, because my biggest thing was I didn't know what I wanted to do yet. And, it wasn't a midlife crisis, but you're trying to make the right moves to set yourself up for the rest of your life. And that's what I feel like I was doing, and I'm still doing it right now. And then we got that up and running, and everything was good. And then Steve ended up selling Moab 4x4 Outpost and then moving down to Hurricane. And he was moving down, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, because Sand Hollow was just, it's a phenomenal shop and it was awesome, but it wasn't what I wanted to do at that point in my life. Right. I thought it was, but it wasn't. So, and this will be a back note a little bit with Jeep Jamboree USA. So I started doing work with Jeep Jamboree USA in Moab back in probably 08 or 09. They started renting some of our Jeeps, probably 09, I think. They started renting some of our Jeeps. And, I got to know people like Greg Ketchmark and then Sean Gulling, which is the vice president for Jamboree. And, I was always guiding down there because that's what we started our business on, was the guide side. And so we rented a couple Jeeps, and they were just like, hey, we're short some guides, Jim. Would you be interested in guiding for some of these corporate trips? And I said, yeah, I'd love to. And then, with owning that business down there, we got really lucky with falling into Jeep themselves. We got to do a lot of R&D with some of the newer platforms they were coming out with. And then it kind of coincided with me doing Jamboree stuff. And then, anyway, so I got in really good with Jamboree. And then in 2017, after Steve and I got Sand Hollow up and running, like I said, I wasn't, it was great. I loved it, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. So it was nothing to do with Steve or Sand Hollow Off-Road. It was where I was personally and where I wanted to be. Pierce Umlauf, he's the president and the CEO of Jeep Jamboree, which is a super solid dude. I'd done a lot of things with him and built a couple of not race courses, but a couple of courses for some launches. And he said, hey, we're getting ready to do the JL launch in New Zealand. Would you like to go? And 5 people in the world got to go to New Zealand and do the launch for the 2018 JL. And,
wow.
I'm like, who passes that up?
For real.
Nobody. So I talked to Steve and I was like, hey, dude, it's been great, but this isn't where I want to be in life. You've got more money in the business and I've got time in it, which didn't cost me anything. I want to be out. I want to sign everything over. And he's like, really? And I said, yeah. I said, I love you. I want to just make sure everything's okay. And that's when I stepped aside from Sand Hollow, and Steve moved down after he sold the Outpost. And then I started my stint with Jeep Jamboree. And so, we went to New Zealand and did the JL launch. And then we went back again in 2019 to do the JT launch. And that kind of started my, my side career with Jeep Jamboree USA. And, what a phenomenal experience that was. I've got to do a lot of things that people dream of doing. And when you're doing them, you never realize what you're doing. And, I stepped away from Jamboree March of this year. And that was I still travel a little bit. Right now I'm at Rusty's Off-Road Products. Barb and I are getting our ducks in a row here with what we want to do in Pahrump with our shop. And, but just getting to do that and everything that entailed was pretty awesome. But the travel side, everybody thinks you live the glitz and glamour life, which I'm not knocking it whatsoever, because I don't want people to be like, oh, you're so lucky. I'm super lucky. I've been very lucky with what I've got to do. But waking up in a different hotel room every night for 300 nights a year for 3 years, it got a little tiring. So I started figuring out my exit strategy from there, and it was nothing to do with Jeep Jamboree USA. Once again, kind of like with Sand Hollow, I loved everything I got to do, and the people that are involved with Jeep Jamboree, from Pierce to Sean to Ty to Jake to Ree to everybody that's had anything to do with it, they are literally top shelf people, just hard workers, and you 7 days a week, 15, 17 hours a day, nobody cares. You just want to get the job done. And that's where I think the devotion to the sport and to this industry, it doesn't matter what side you're on. If you're on the Jamboree side, or if you're a builder and you're producing parts for people, you're always just trying to do the best job for everybody else to make sure they're always happy. And I love that about this sport.
Yeah, everybody that's in this truly has a passion for it, or they're not in it very long.
Right.
What I see, a lot of guys are, they work for a company, or they have their own company, and they just change business cards. They never step out of the industry. Very few. Most just find another avenue to continue that passion.
Yeah, and that's funny you say that, because you that's hitting home with me right now. That's exactly what I've done. You might not be moving forward, but you're moving sideways in the same direction with what you want to do. And when you're devoted to this type of lifestyle, you can't shake it. I don't want to shake it, and I don't think anybody in this industry does.
Right.
Like you said, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, keep going.
I was just saying, you might change business cards, but that doesn't change your heart. Different name on the door, but you still want to do what you're doing.
Yeah, what I was going to say was my grandfather, asked me when I was really young what I wanted to be in life, and I wanted to do something outdoors. I was thinking along the lines of a forest ranger, fish and game, something like that. And he says, okay, that's really good, but as you get older, think about what it is in life that you love to do, and then figure out a way to make a living doing it. And when he said living, he explicitly told me that he wasn't talking about how much money I could make doing it. It's how I got to live my life. And so for the first 42 years, I was in and out of all sorts of different businesses, whether I was working for somebody else or started my own, until I finally found what it is that I wanted, and that was off-road. And I knew I loved off-road. My first time on the Rubicon was in like 81. And
wow.
I was like, I've got to continue doing this. This is really cool. And then I was able to continue being involved with the sport as an enthusiast, and then then I stepped into the event promotions after, helping other people with events and figuring out, well, I could probably do this as well. So, it was part of the passion, and I've been able to make a living at it. Not a great living, but, it wasn't about the money. It's about the passion.
Yeah. You hit it right on the head for my story also. But Barb and I, we've never been rich. We've been poor a few times for sure doing this, but if I can continue not to have to grow up and do this, I'll guarantee you I'll do it till the day I die. And
Right.
Obviously, like everybody, you want to slow down sooner or later. And God, dude, I'm pushing the big 50. I'm 49 right now. I'll hit 50 in August this year. So all of a sudden, I feel like probably a woman that hasn't been pregnant in her late 30s, and that clock is ticking right now, because I'm like, I don't want to work forever, but I just want to get out, just get far enough ahead in my life to where, in my 60s, I just want to be able to piddle, make a little money, but I don't want to have tos. I just want to have want tos. That's what I'm shooting for.
Yeah, I'm 63 now. So like I keep telling everybody, I've been doing this. This is my 21st year of putting on events.
Wow.
20 years of rock crawls, series.
Yeah.
I can't, at 62, you do the math, I can't do it for another 20 years.
I know you'd like to, and the older you get, you don't realize, or like, I'm not speaking for everybody, for myself, you don't realize you're getting older until you start looking at your age and your number. And I try not to pay attention to it too much, but you just like you said, you can't do it for another 20 years. You're not going to live forever.
Right.
So
it's the aches and pains that remind you. At 50, the aches and pains weren't that bad. At 60 is when I realized I had a lot of aches and pains.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah.
So good luck.
I go to sleep at night and I wake up with a damn sports injury. I'm like, what did I do last night in my sleep? Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
I asked Shelly that one time. I already had a knee injury on my left knee, and we were in Moab. We were staying there at Grandpa's garage during Easter Jeep, and I stayed up late at one of the parties. Went back.
Yeah.
I didn't fall. I didn't do anything to my knee that day. We were on the trail. I hiked a bunch, but I wake up in the morning, and I went to get up, and I'm like, Jesus Christ. And I looked at Shelly and I said, did you put me in a figure 4 yesterday and, wrench my knee or something last night? And she was like, no, I know. Did you fall down coming back to the motorhome?
If I did, I don't remember.
Exactly.
Dude, I know Shelly. I think she's beating you at night, Rich. You probably deserve it, dude.
Oh, if she did, I did. There's no doubt about it.
Oh, that's so funny. Hey, man,
awesome.
Just real quick, I'd like to thank you and Shelly for what you guys do. It meant a lot to my family, especially when Kinsey was younger, because I got to compete with Kinsey in her little YJ for a couple of years.
Yep.
And just to do something like that with my daughter and Barb, it was pretty phenomenal. You don't get things like that. I think a few people get something like that, maybe in a different side of what their life is, but that was our life. And to spend those times and to walk those courses with my daughter, it was pretty special. And maybe, a lot of people get it. Maybe a lot of people don't. One of the biggest things, Ken's rolled a couple of times competing, and Barb or Kinsey and I would always be upset with Barb because, Barb's a mom. She would always drop the camera during the roll. I'm like, you just missed the best part. Kinsey took a hard roll. She broke her front output shaft, and we needed the bonus points. And I was like, I'm putting you in a roll. You just need to drive out of it. She's like, okay, Dad. So I've got some great GoPro footage of it. But she hits it. She starts going over in Rangeley, Colorado. And you know how off-camber Rangeley is. So she starts going downhill. She hits a big rock with her right front tire, breaks the output shaft in the T-case, and then she just rolls down the hill. I run up to her, and I said, can you drive out of it? Because she was just on her side. And she tries to drive out. The front wheels aren't spinning. So anyway, Barb's watching the GoPro video of it, and you can hear us talking. And she's like, you didn't even ask her if she was okay. I was like, I knew she was okay. She had a cage around her. So it just goes back to the lifestyle. Just, the competitiveness just brings a lot out of people. And Kinsey loved it. It was just, it was a really special time in our life with all that, Rich. And you provided that for us. And and you and Shelly, and Barb and I and our family really appreciate it. You've done a phenomenal job at what you've done for the last 20 some odd years.
Well,
You've succeeded, dude. You've succeeded.
that if that's my legacy, so be it, and I'm proud of it.
You should be, man. You totally should be. So, and that's the same
awesome.
thing, yeah. Just competing with Steve, on the other side of that, just really, really good times. Just a lot of good memories and strategies and emotions that go on during those competitions.
Yep,
you can't beat it.
That's why I continue to do these, is because it's the people that are in the sport, the enthusiasts that watch the sport, the companies that help us put these on. Everything about it is just, it's such a family that, this COVID thing, we had an extra long off season coming into 2021. And we, our off season, all of a sudden there was no SEMA. There was no Off-Road Expo. There was all this stuff that you're used to doing, what we call the show season, after the competition season, that we couldn't do. We barely were able to do the Rebelle Rally. There was all sorts of stipulations and controls and all that kind of stuff. And so after that, we had nothing to do. I mean, we still had things to do, but not people orientated. We still had the magazine, and Shelly's got her other businesses that we work on. And, it was really hard to leave the boat and get back to rock crawling until I got to Texas for the first event. And then it was like, oh my God, I've missed this. And then when everybody showed up, it was even more so.
Yeah. And that's something you've built. You've built an extended family that's your family. You don't have to be blood to be family.
Correct.
And that's what everybody knows when they go to one of your events. And that's same thing with any race event. It's amazing how that brings people together and what it does. Barb and I right now, we got super lucky, and we get to race a Mojave for Jeep. And it was hard pressed last year. We were doing it with Jeep Jamboree USA, and COVID hit, like you said, and Pierce is like, we need to save our money, watch what we're doing, and he wanted to not get rid of the truck, but he was like, I don't think we're gonna race it this year. And I was like, oh, okay. And I asked him before, and this is before I ended up leaving. I said, hey, if it's all good with you, would you mind if I talk to Jeep and see if they'd want to put it in the program in our name, Barb and I with Outlaw? And he's like, no, man, go for it. Love to see that truck keep racing. And we have some friends on the engineering side with Jeep, and I started reaching out. And it was when FCA started merging with Peugeot, and they became Stellantis, and that was all this year. So the truck was kind of just sitting in limbo for so long. And then 2 weeks before the Silver State 300 in the Best of the Desert series, I got an email from them, and they said, hey, this is Brandon with marketing. We'd love for you to continue to race the truck. And I already laid out my schedule. I thought they'd give us the go ahead probably 2 months ahead, but when the wheels of those big cogs, they turn very, very slow. And for me, it's everything in my world. For them, they're like, you matter, but dude, we're all making sure we all have jobs. So
exactly.
I'm firing off emails and pictures, every day and everything like that. So they came back and said, you were going to move it from the engineering side to the marketing side. And so 2 weeks, and then, we've reached out to sponsors, and we've had sponsors for years, but you don't want to be that guy that's asking for something and they're sending you something, especially nowadays, because everything is so shorthanded and back ordered. So Barb and I, we had sponsors, but we weren't asking for anything yet because we didn't know if we were going to get to keep the truck. And, we built it last year, and, Jamboree and Barb and I, we've got a lot of time and blood, sweat, tears, and money in that truck. And to race at one time at Best in the Desert, we did the Vegas to Reno, and Barb and I got taken out at mile 164. And, you just like we were talking about earlier, it's not something I need or want to do. I have to do it. And so 2 weeks before the Silver State 300, they're like, hey, you have the truck. and Barb and I hadn't taken any product, and everything's back ordered, and we didn't even know if we had enough money to get the truck off the line. And this is a no bullshit story once again. We fought a lot of vapor lock with that truck. So I put a fuel pressure regulator in it, and I'm dumping fuel back to the fuel cell as quick as I can get it back. And I'm like, I think this is from last year towards the end of the year. I was like, everything is good. We took it to Moab, and I did some ripping around in the sand with it and did a couple of jumps. And I was like, hey, it seems like everything's good. So we went to Tech a few weeks ago in Vegas. And of course, Vegas has had great weather, 75 degrees. We drive the truck. We live in Pahrump, so I didn't want to trailer it. It's 50 miles from the house, so we drove it there. It was 95, almost. It was 102 in the parking lot. So Barb and I, we go in, register and everything. I'm like, cool. We fire up the truck. We're sitting in the tech line, and all of a sudden, I start hearing chirp, 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 and I was like, are you kidding me? So the truck vapor locked up, and I'm running dual fuel pumps in just a system, a tandem system. So Barb's like, babe, are you kidding me? The truck is going to vapor lock up. So we're in Tech. We had to push it off the line. We couldn't even get through Tech yet. We pushed it off the line. I'm tearing the fuel system apart in the parking lot. Not dumping gas everywhere, just so everybody knows. It was all controlled in the bed of the truck. So I get it down to one fuel pump, and then so we get back in the Tech line. I'm shutting the truck. I'm turning it on and off. So we finally get to the Tech side of it, and the truck dies. So Barb and I literally pushed the truck into Tech, and then we get attacked. It passes. So I'm like, all right, we had to drive 60 miles back to our house. That truck vapor locked up probably 10 times on the side of 95 and I-15 until we were sitting on the side of the road, rush hour traffic. Oh, Rich, it was so stressful. I was like, are you kidding me? This is terrible. So anyway, they say it takes 60 PSI to run that motor. So I had the fuel regulator dialed on 60 PSI. I was like, forget it. I'm opening this damn regulator up. I'm running this truck on 30 PSI. I opened that regulator up, and the truck ran perfect. And I was like, are you shitting me? So we started heading home, and I was like, all right, we got out towards Red Rocks, getting ready to head over the springs there, over the hump to Pahrump.
Right.
So I said, all right, babe, this is going to be stupid, but I'm going to pull over to the side of the road because, you're just in 2-lane. Then I'm going to say, we're going to let this truck idle, and we'll see if it idles. Idled like a champ. So Barb and I, the next day, we headed out to Alamo, Nevada, and we raced the truck. And I was just like, and I had both fuel pumps still mounted, but I was only running the lower fuel pump, but I left everything off, just capped off the pumps just in case I needed to swap it during the race. And so we drove it all the way there because, Jeep, they want us to stay as pure as we possibly can. Right. So we literally drove that truck 200 miles to Alamo, Nevada. Barb and I raced it 300 miles. We finished the race, and, everybody that follows us on Facebook, we ended up taking second place, which to finish any attrition race, and I literally, you got the Chevy boys out there with the Hall team, and you had Mel out there with Evo. Those guys are the best of the best. They so nice. We didn't even know if we had enough money to end up racing this thing. I called Kenzie and Trevor, which is her husband. She's 5 months pregnant, and Trevor's just, they own a quick lube shop there in Moab. Yeah. And I was like, hey, and this is not a bullshit story. I called Kenzie at 5:00 Thursday night before we were getting ready to Tech and I can't say enough. I'm not going to pump a bunch of stuff but Twisted Jeep Rentals in Moab, if it wasn't for them, we probably wouldn't have raced that race. They came through sponsor-wise big time.
Nice.
And it worked out great. So I called Kenzie and Trevor, and they're like, we're in. So she's 5 months along, and Trevor knows a ton about cars, and Kenzie's been around this racing and competing her whole life. So yeah, we put the wheels on the damn truck, and Barb and I pulled out 300 miles and finished second. And if anybody's ever raced anything that's an attrition race, just, it doesn't matter if you're first or last. First is always nice, but to cross that line in an attrition race like that, there's no other feeling like that in the world.
And then get the podium as well. That's you may not have gotten on the top of the podium, but you still podiumed. That's
it. Yeah, and we did. Yeah, we podiumed, and it was a really good feeling, especially with everything you go through. And people, you on Facebook, you're always living your best life. Everybody always does. Who wants to see the negative or how hard it is with this and that? But there's a lot of side stories, not just to my life, but everybody that's in this industry and do what they do. You don't work 8 to 5, and you don't have millions of dollars. You're doing whatever you can to succeed, and that's what we've always done. And Barb and I were successful, and it was a long, hard road. And but to get to the end of that road and to cross that finish line, it's been a long time since we've crossed one. It felt, you can't imagine the feeling. Barb, I couldn't, for me, the right seat's the wrong seat. And Barb, she started co-driving last year with me, and I was going to have Ken's co-drive. And Barb was like, well, I think I might want to co-drive. And then, after she went through breast cancer and survived, and her life has completely changed. And that girl is basically, she's always been up for anything. But now she's more of a risk taker. I'm just like, but she's co-driving like a champion. She's been in my right seat for 30 years. So she knows how to, when to talk, when we know when to talk to each other, when not to. When we're stressed, we both just be quiet. And if there's a hard turn coming up, she's like, there's a hard turn coming up, babe. I'm like, okay, thanks. And we work really good together. But to cross that finish line with her, it's probably one of the most special moments in my life. And I've had a lot, obviously the birth of our kids and, your wedding day and things like that. But to cross that finish line after everything it took to get that truck there, when we crossed the start line for this race,
yep,
we'd already won as far as I was concerned. I was like, man, it's just, it's stressful firing off all these emails and just trying to put things together. But it worked out. And we were super happy with it. And then, like I said, Jeep, they're like, hey, we want you guys to race this. And Barb and I got to try to figure out a better way to promote it, as far as especially breast cancer awareness and things like that. We want to do some type of a nonprofit. And once if you know somebody that's went through cancer, or you went through cancer yourself, or a family member, there's a lot of unknowns. And, because there's so many different types and things and tests, and you're scared. You don't know what's going to happen. And it's been an amazing road. But anyway, long story longer, dude. I'm probably going on too long, but
no, you're doing fine.
You're pulling a lot of things out of me. But to get across that finish line, it was awesome. That feeling was really good. So anyway, it takes a lot of people to put that together.
Well, and if we can do anything to help you get your nonprofit together, I'm going to volunteer Shelly.
Sure.
She's amazing at all of that kind of stuff. She's researched. She's done it before. There's anything that we can do to help, let us know.
We'll definitely reach out, Rich, because you guys are phenomenal promoters, along with the people you guys are, and you have so much respect in the industry. We just want to raise a little awareness. Barb and I have been hit by it, and not to try to bring this interview down by any means, but people get interviewed and they want to talk about the business side of everything, and I'm a real personable kind of guy, and these are the things that interest me, and I like to talk about them. So right. I don't want to bore anybody, man.
No, you're not boring anybody. Trust me. So then let's talk about the Outlaw off-road business that you're starting in Pahrump.
Yeah, and that's one thing too. Obviously, when we sold our Jeep tour and rental side, you always sign a non-compete, which that's no big deal because I never want to get into the tour and rental side. But we always kept the Outlaw four-wheel drive side. That's so funny because we have a good friend up in Reno that produced some bumpers and rock sliders for us. I got a damn storage shed full of them I haven't sold yet. I need to get on that. Just with our life taking such a spin, you never concentrate on it. But now I'm getting a little older, so I do feel the TikTok. And yeah, we're gonna start just probably a one-man shop right now, just myself. And I don't want to do this sounds stupid, but you make a lot of money doing a lot of things. But the more money you make, more money just bolting on lift kits, bumpers, lights, doing some gear sets and some things like that. And that's what I want to concentrate on. And, do I think it's going to be a Cinderella story? No. I mean, it'd be great if I had 100 people that were lined up with their JKs and JLs for me to put 2 to 4 inch lift kits on, tires, wheels, and bumpers. But that's just what I want to do. I enjoy it. got a decent amount of experience with what we've done in the industry, and you know how to build things, you know what works and what doesn't work. And I think one of our biggest strengths is we listen to people. What are you using your Jeep for? Oh, I wheel it on a 1 weekend a month, and then my wife drives it around, or I drive it around to work. Well, great. I'm not going to throw a 4-inch lift in a set of 40s, and a long arm kit. I'm going to, want to build it for what you're using it for.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's what we want to start in Pahrump. Like I said, it's not a multi-million-dollar operation by any means. We're going to start small and mom and pop it to death, and hopefully enjoy a little bit of our lives. It's nice to take a step back, or if you can take a step back, still pay the bills, and do what we can. But yeah, I want to start slowing down just a little bit. Not a whole bunch, but a little. You still have to pay the bills and throw a little money in the bank, because I do want to do what I want to do, not have tos. But
right.
Yeah, we'll see if we can get that up and running by the middle of June, is what we're thinking. And Pahrump's not the mecca for off-road, but we live there now, and I never realized how many Jeeps actually roll through Pahrump, and I never realized how many friends we have in Vegas. I started talking about doing it, and then you got 4 or 5 people reaching out going, well, hey, we live in Vegas, we'll come over. And I'm just like, oh. And then you really start to, you realize a little bit like, hey, this might really work. So, you know what? Maybe it's going to work. Maybe it doesn't. But I would definitely rather look back at my life and go, damn, I can't believe we did that, instead of look back at my life and go, man, what if we would have done that?
Yeah,
so,
or wish I'd have tried at least. Exactly.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. My
belief is you never fail unless you don't try.
100%, Rich.
I mean,
I agree with you 100%.
And the other thing is you're only failing if you don't try. If you try and it doesn't succeed, you haven't failed. It didn't succeed. But if you never tried, then you failed.
Yeah, and even when you try and it doesn't work, you still learn something. So that's still it's a win-loss. It's a 50-50, I guess.
Yep, agreed. So give me a little list, if you can, of the things that you want to do, not need to do. You say there's, you want to spend some time doing some things. What's on that list of things you want to do?
What I want to do is I would like to race a little more. Just like I've said before, once you get that bug, it's hard to shake, and it's not something I want to do or need to do. I have to do it. It'd be cool to take that top spot on the podium one day. We got some stiff competition, and we just raced the pure stock class.
Right.
It's so funny. We've had some Ultra 4 cars, and everything we've got to build along the way, and we're racing from Vegas to Reno, and you're on the bottom end of those shocks because it's stock. And that's one thing too. You have to. I had to totally relearn how to drive. Especially being a Tristan, you can't be hard on it, because you got to make 300 miles or 500 miles. And Barb's like, God, this thing rides rough. What? And she's used to triple bypasses and coilovers and stuff, and I'm like, babe, it's just a stock truck. I said, this thing is an animal. And then she really learned how tough that truck was. But anyway, back to your question. I would, Barb and I, we want to just build a home in Pahrump. That's something I would love to do. I'd like to have I don't know if we're going to have to rent some space in Pahrump, but I'd like to build a house and build a shop just behind the house, maybe have 2 or 3 or 4 acres, and run the shop right from our house. I know that business-wise, it's not as smart, because, you can't sell your building, you can't sell your business really, but, retirement for me, like I've already said probably 3 or 4 times, it's not have tos, it's just want tos. And I want to continue to work on a little bit of stuff here and there, make a little money on the side, even when I'm in my 60s. So I'm not looking to build some massive empire and sell it. I enjoy working on Jeeps and interacting with people, and there's nothing better than doing a good build and watching people enjoy it, or sending you a picture, or coming back again to upgrade a little bit. They're like, everybody builds on a budget. Some budgets are a lot bigger than others, but it's really nice to see, the growth of a wheeling family. They're like, oh, I just want a little 2-inch lift and some 35s. And then next thing you know, they're like, wow, a 3-inch lift and maybe some 37s or 40s. Can you bump stop it down a little bit so my 40s don't rub? Yeah, no problem. So I enjoy that. I enjoy making people happy and watching them grow. And I think that comes back from the Jeep Tour side. When you have somebody that buys a Jeep and comes to Moab, and Moab, it's very intimidating, for the people that have wheeled there for years. Obviously it's not, but if you've never been there, it's pretty intimidating. So, they hire a guide like myself or all the great guys that are out there, and you show them a few tricks of the trade. The biggest trick I can ever teach anybody is drive with 2 feet, braking your gas. It makes everything so much smoother, and you don't have to go hammer down. Learn how to pick a line.
Yes.
But to see everybody enjoy that and watch them from the beginning of the day, where they're scared to death and nervous to ever go out by themselves, which you shouldn't go by yourself. Always take somebody with you. But if you do, make sure somebody knows where you're at. You've done it. I've done it. We've all done it a million times. But to give a family confidence in, the Jeep or whatever you're wheeling, it doesn't matter if it's a Toyota, whatever you're wheeling, the vehicle is always way more capable than the individual that's behind the wheel. Just is, always has been, always will be. Until you get that experience, then you know exactly what. After you rolled a few over, you know exactly what a vehicle will do.
Yes.
But by the end of the day, you've taken a family out or an individual, and you've given them confidence in themselves. And I know it sounds corny and stupid, but it was really satisfying for me because I knew they were better wheelers for it, and maybe not going to make a stupid mistake and get hurt or break the vehicle.
Yeah, and it makes them better people.
Oh,
I mean,
100%.
Anytime you learn something, and it can be a basic, trail etiquette or how to approach an obstacle or whatever, some of that filters through in the rest of your life. So
yeah. And I agree 100%, Rich. And that's one thing too. I think after, I'm not an old school wheeler, but I think of myself as an old school wheeler. I've been doing it a long time. I think trail etiquette, that's starting to become a little thing of the past. Maybe not, but you see it here and there where you're like, wow, what's up with that? So
yeah, I think part of it is people not, like, when I learned to wheel, it was open, no power steering. I mean, you didn't have all the tools that the new vehicles are sold with. And so,
no.
The capability of the vehicle was not there like it is now. So you had to learn some finesse. You needed to learn how to read the line and use your tools accordingly. When I wheel now, I'll wheel in one-wheel drive, and then I'll go to front and rear. Then I'll start using the lockers. But I never throw everything at it just because that's what everybody else is doing. I've seen that too many times, especially now that I've done a couple of media runs where we're maybe with a tire company or some other company, and they've got guides, and the guides are saying, okay, put your lockers on, and I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Well, because you have them, so use them. It's like, well, why don't you teach people how to do this without your lockers first? They become better wheelers and get in less trouble, I think. Less recoveries, less rollovers if you use your tools accordingly instead of just using them all at once, when you don't need it, because then when you do need it, you're in over your head. So
yeah, 100%. And that's one thing too. I think the way everybody builds now, you have a lot of people with a lot of money. You have some people with not a lot of money, but you see a lot of individuals that can throw a ton of money under their vehicle, and then they've never had to learn how to drive.
Yep.
Well, I'm running 42s and I walk front and rear with 60s and 40 flying chromoly shafts, and I just go up everything. No. You need to strip that all down. Get yourself a YJ or with a 5-speed and a 4-cylinder, open. Go learn how to drive.
Yep.
And that's the way our kids were raised. Learn how to pick a line. And one of the biggest things I think with what you and Shelly do with We Rock is you learn how to finesse. You don't need to hammer down on everything. A little finesse will get you a long way, and it saves your rig for sure. You're never out of control. You might need to do a little bump here and there, but once you get to the top, back out of the throttle and look ahead of you. So I agree 100% with the driving art. It's going to be a thing of the past, not for everybody. And I don't mean to upset anybody, but I think open with some 33s, go out and learn how to drive. You'll have a different perspective on everything when you're wheeling, for sure.
I always suggest to the new teams that come out to We Rock is, if before you come out and compete, you should come out and judge. And not only do you actually learn the rules that way, but you get to see other people succeed or make mistakes that hopefully you can learn from. And then the other thing is if you don't do that, they should all the new guys should watch the judge's video at least, so that they can at least learn the rules.
Yeah.
Nobody reads. Very few people are prepared when they come out there, and they think it's, there's like no rules. There's 59 or 50, 53 pages of rules. It's
yeah.
Like, take your time and read them.
That's
basic,
it. Mm-hmm. It's very important to read rules.
Yeah. Anyway, I want to say thank you for taking the time and discussing your life and your family and your passion. And I think that people are really going to enjoy this interview. Even if they've never met you, Jim, they're gonna take things away from it that hopefully they can build their life and their passion in this industry from things that you've experienced and you've done and the way you've been.
Yeah, well, Rich, I really appreciate that. Every day is a learning day for me. I think once you know everything in this business, you need to get out. You're not going to help anybody or yourself anymore. And I really mean this from the bottom of my heart, Rich. When you shot me a text and asked me if I would want to be on your podcast, that was a lot of honor for me, dude. It meant a lot. It means a lot. Just so you know, I think you and Shelly are top shelf people, and like I said, to get that phone call, it was pretty cool. It's my life's not full circle, but it's getting there. Okay. And I've been super lucky to get to do some of the things I've got to do. So anyway, but thank you very much.
And that's the story you had to tell, and I think that's important. And that's what I get out of these podcasts is learning things about friends, but also those friends sharing their life with our listeners really, is really important in the long run. Whether people think it is right now or not, they're going to glean some information out of everybody's podcasts, and hopefully it helps them in their life. And that means we're succeeding. So
that's awesome. The support of your family, that's all you can ask for.
There you go.
I've had it for sure, and I know you have too. Yeah. So,
well, Jim, thank you for spending the time. I know that you probably need to talk to your wife, but give our prayers and wishes.
I will,
to everybody in the family, and say hello to Mackenzie for me, because I haven't seen her in a while. The last time was I stopped for an oil change, and they did a superior job. So,
well, thanks,
she
man.
remembered me.
And
I didn't remember her, and I apologize to her for that.
Oh, dude, last time you saw her, she was probably 17 or 18. She's 23 now. So no apology needed, brother.
People grow up. They sure do.
Yep. So,
all right.
Well, cool. Thank you so much, Rich. I appreciate it.
Okay. You take care.
All right. You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
If you enjoy these podcasts, please give us a rating. Share some feedback with us via Facebook or Instagram, and share our link among your friends who might be like-minded. Well, that brings this episode to an end. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll catch you next week with Conversations with Big Rich. Thank you very much.